Shalom. Shalom. This is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. We are speaking on behalf of Brit-Am, a movement that believes in the lost in tribes amongst Western nations. And we research it and we propagate our findings, the findings of our research. We believe that lost in tribes are amongst Western nations and we have proof of it. We present this proof to the public and we try and get the message to as many people as possible. And we do manage to get it to some. At all events, this is what we have to do, this is what we believe. We have a task to do, and this is what we try to do. And we succeed in getting the information, at least to some degree. But getting the information to other people is not so easy. And nevertheless, this is what we have, this is what we are, this is what we believe in, and it is important. It's important for you, and it's important for everyone. And listen to us, because we have something to say and we have sources for what we say. We don't just say things, we research it, we have sources, biblical sources, rabbinical sources, other sources, and we back up what we say with our research findings. Now, we have done quite a lot of research concerning the lost in tribes. We find the lost in tribes amongst Western nations. And we have proof of it. In other words, there's objective proof that lost in tribes are amongst Western peoples. And the Bible tells us about this. We get proof from the Bible, from Scripture, history, historical records, historical proofs, archaeology, linguistics, mythology. A lot of different sources all come in to confirm the results of our findings that the lost in tribes are amongst Western nations. And this is maybe called the objective evidence, the facts on the ground. In addition to that, we have different sources from the Bible, from rabbinical writings, from our own observations and conclusions that indicate why, how, what was the purpose of it all? Why did the lost in tribes get lost? Now this is more theoretical. It is coming as an attempt to explain the objective truth, one could say. Nevertheless, it is important. It's important and it helps us. It gives us a framework to think, to restructure, to internalize the objective findings that we have. And what are we speaking about? Why? Why did the lost in tribes get lost? Why couldn't they stay as they were? Why did they have to get lost? And why did they have to do what they have done? And why did it have to be that way? Why couldn't they remain Israelites and be identified as Israelites and still do what they have done or what they were supposed to do? What is the reason for this? So we have an idea, and not only have an idea based upon different sources, and we give you an outlining of this idea, and perhaps in future talks and also in our writings, those who are interested will find more details of this and references to the talks and explanations as to how we reached the conclusions that we have reached. But the present we're just going to give, one could say, very briefly, an overall outline of how we understand things to have been and why they were that way. So we had the first Hebrews were Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. They were the forefathers of the Israelite nation. Abraham received blessings. He was blessed. He was blessed that he would be blessed, that he would be, many peoples would come out of him, that he would be a great and mighty nation, and also that he would do justice and judgment. That was why he was blessed. It was God said he was blessed him because of this, that he should do justice and judgment and bring a blessing upon all peoples of the earth. So the blessings for Abraham included the task of civilizing humanity and being blessed in order to enable it. He would become a great and mighty nation and possess access to all the nations of the earth, one could say, rule over them or influence them, as his descendants indeed did, in order to civilize them and to upgrade them. And this was a task given unto him. From Abraham came Isaac, came Jacob, the forefathers under Jacob. They went down to Egypt. They were in Egypt. Joseph was also in Egypt. Joseph was the son of Jacob. Joseph was the de facto ruler over Egypt, and in effect over all the civilized world at that time. And he fed it, he kept it alive, he reformed it. But Joseph was hidden. He was not known to his brothers, and he also is a prototype of what the Israelites had to do. So we have these two factors: Abraham, the task given to Abraham, the task fulfilled by Joseph, and the blessings that have been given unto him. Now, as we understand it, there was, one could say, a plan A. There was a primary plan. The Israelites that came out of Egypt, they'd been oppressed in Egypt, they came out of Egypt, they went through the wilderness led by Moses. In the wilderness they received the Torah. They were supposed to keep the Torah and to keep going into the land of Canaan and conquer it, as indeed they did, and divide it amongst the 12 tribes, as indeed they did. The land of Canaan stretched from the Nile to the Euphrates, and conquered all that area, even though they didn't settle thickly in all, nor every part of it. At different stages they ruled over all of that region, and they were supposed to live according to the Torah in their land, to drive out the inhabitants of the land who were there before for them, the Canaanites, and to live there, and to build a temple in Jerusalem, which they did. And they were supposed to lead a Torah life while influencing the rest of the world. And maybe in the time of Solomon, King Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem, and he married 1,000 women. Women, that is 300 wives and 700 concubines. And he married these women, and these women were from all the nations of the earth. And Rabbi Nachman Bratslav, a great Hasidic leader, and also others, they suggested the reason why he had to marry these women, these foreign women, was to influence over the nations in question, as if to say, at a spiritual level, by marrying these women from all peoples of the earth, he had access to them. So there may be something to it. At all events, the idea is there. And what they were supposed to do, according to Maimonides, according to the Bible, hints in the Bible, they were supposed to influence all peoples of the earth, to recognize the God of Israel, to keep basic humanitarian rules, basic laws of behavior, and also to come up to Jerusalem and make homage to Jerusalem, to learn from the Israelites, and to elevate or be elevated. And the Israelites were supposed to do this through their example, through personal example, through their economic and cultural and political influence, and also, when necessary, by force of arms. Together with doing this, becoming the de facto rulers or major influential forces in the world, they were supposed to keep the law and to develop the law. The law needed to be developed. But the peoples of the world, the environment, was not ready for it, they were not suited for it, and neither were the Israelites. The Israelites were not able to maintain these two drives, these two needs, these two tasks, one and the same time. They were not ready, they were not worthy, one could say, and or objectively something went wrong, perhaps because of the sin of the golden calf in the desert, perhaps for other reasons, perhaps because Solomon, worshipping idols in his old age, letting the women who he was supposed to influence, through them he was supposed to influence other nations, in effect had the opposite. It had the opposite effect. It worked the other way, and they influenced him, and he went after their gods. Whatever the immediate need was, Plan A was not able to go into process. So the Almighty, as if to say, put into effect Plan B. The Almighty had his reasons, and Plan B went into effect. What Plan B went was the Israelite nation would divide into two different sections. The 10 tribes would have to be lost, become like the Gentiles, go down to the level of the Gentiles, become like them, and from amongst them to elevate themselves to go upward and to bring the rest of the world with them. Whereas the other section of the Israelite nation, Judah, who became the Jews, they also had a task of their own aspects of what had to be done that were pertained to themselves. They had to take the other section of the primary plan, which was to develop the Torah and to bring out from inside of it, to show from inside of it what it intended for us to do. And this is what the Jews have done. Rabbinical Jews have done it. Throughout the centuries they've learnt the Torah. They delve into it. They analyze it. They develop an intuitive feeling for it. And you look at it and they know what the Torah wants. You have, and the Jews are very argumentative. They have 3 Jews, or 2 Jews and 3 synagogues, is a famous saying. But nevertheless, they always manage to maintain a basic consensus as to what the Torah wanted of us. And they still do. And this, in effect, is another proof of the Torah, that it has this quality. And the Jews were supposed to develop this quality and to prove it and to bring out from it the laws that now exist. And this is what they have done to some degree. And so too, the 10 tribes were supposed to humanize humanity and to upgrade them and to bring them to a certain level. And this is what they have done. Compared to what existed previously, both sides have done what they were supposed to do, even though there are many failings, many imperfections in what was carried out. Basically, they did it. And they have now reached a stage, according to different signs, different sayings. Rabbi Cook and others said this. Other people said this. Numerous sources said this. The Bible indicates it very strongly. We are reaching the end times where, in order to go further, the two halves have to come together. Have to come together and bring the two movements, the two driving forces, to unite them. And this is what has to be done. And this is what the Messiah will do. We're not going to do it, the Messiah will do it. There are a lot of things that we're not going to do in the Messiah, we can leave them to the Messiah. Nevertheless, we have the obligation to let the 10 tribes know who they are. And this is a means of preparing the way for the future coming on the Messiah, and to prepare the background, to prepare the way for the Messiah when he comes, that he will be able to have something to work with. Concerning what the 10 tribes have done, we should notice that the 10 tribes were the ones who took the task of Abraham, that was to civilize mankind, to do justice and judgment in the world, to bring a blessing upon the peoples of the earth, to upgrade mankind in a material and a spiritual form. And this is what they have done, and this may be seen in what we wrote concerning colonization, the history of colonization. The British, the Dutch, the French, they were major Israelite nations, and they were major colonial powers, and they ruled over a good portion of the earth. And they influenced all peoples of the earth and upgraded the earth, and they helped elevate the natives of the earth, and even areas that they didn't rule over. And if you look at it, sometimes you state or other, they ruled over most nations of the earth. Even those they did not rule over, they heavily influenced. And now America is continuing this. America is a major Israelite nation in our time, and America is continuing where they left off. And America is doing it through soft power, one could say, through its cultural influences, through its economic power, through its diplomatic force, and sometimes through its physical force. But it's not so overtly, it's not so directly, it's not so brutal, one could say. But nevertheless, the end result is even greater, and America is helping to continuing the task they had of civilizing mankind, even though America itself is now, due to moral turpitude, sexual promiscuity, and all kinds of other problems that America has. America is also influenced in introducing this corruptive force within what it is doing, and this is one you could say upsetting the boat. And nevertheless, the overall tendency is to do good for good, and the good is what is being produced by them when compared to the alternatives. So these are all separate matters for consideration. We should know that concerning colonialism, what we wrote about colonialism in our book, The Tribes, we said that the nations identified in this book as being of the Israelite seed of Abraham were those who mainly conducted European colonialist policies from 18th to 20th centuries. The overall effects of colonialism in most cases were very beneficial, despite claims to the contrary. French, British and Dutch colonialism put a stop to internecine warfare, that is civil war. They ended human sacrifice and ended slavery. They founded or they improved irrigation systems. They reformed agricultural practices, public hygiene. They wiped out diseases. They built bridges, roads, public works. Wherever they ruled, the local population greatly increased in numbers, in health, and in respect for basic human dignity. They were the ones who wiped out slavery. They were the ones who reformed the nations. They still are the ones who, compared to the others, are more concerned with correct behavior, and they are the final possibility for saving civilized men from the oppression of others. And this is what they are. They are the last hope of many of the oppressed in the world. If anyone is going to do anything for oppressed people, it is them. Wherever they ruled, the local population greatly increased in numbers, in health, and in respect for basic human dignity. The colonial powers also often, but not always, made large profits for their own citizens, helped themselves by exploiting opportunities for investment when the subject countries offered. This investment usually benefited all parties. It's part of the blessing of Abraham. The power was given and was used for good, even though in some cases the initial conscious motivation in colonization was a loss for power and material gain. They weren't all saints. They weren't doing everything out of altruistic motives. They were driven by a lust for wealth, for power, for things that drive human beings to do what they do. But there was an element of altruistic intent behind their actions, as was proven. And even in the case of the British, they often gained colonies by accident through the result of the impetus or the momentum of processes that had already been set in place. Even against their will, they often had to take over countries and areas because they were the only hope for the people who were being taken over. And the overall effect of colonization was beneficial. Altruistic motives were also present, they were implemented, and even today these peoples remain the only really morally motivated advances of international justice in this world. And so this is what we have. USA followed in the footsteps of the British. It also used economic and cultural inducements rather than direct force and fiat to achieve the same ends. This is what was done. And this was part of what they were supposed to do. And this is all substantiated by sources, different sources, all point in the same direction, all come together to show this picture. And it shows us what the lost tribes were supposed to do, why they were lost, and it indirectly, it confirms, it comes together with the proofs that we have concerning who the lost 10 tribes are, because if the lost 10 tribes were supposed to do these things to be this way, and they did do these things and they were this way, this is another proof that these peoples, the peoples of Western Europe, the peoples of North American related peoples, are substantially the lost 10 tribes, the lost 10 tribes in the world today. Thank you, may the Lord God of Israel bless you.